Welcome to the Home Team Podcast. I'm Carl Falconer.
And I'm Danny Arroyo.
And we're tackling homelessness.
Today in our podcast, we will discuss two of our passions, football and ending homelessness. Please join us through 4 quarters with our topic this week being diversion. So, Carl, what did you think of our first podcast?
I thought it was okay. It went better than I expected, but not as good as I'm hoping our next ones will be.
I agree. I think it went good. I think we got good feedback from not only our staff, but family and friends.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to get better at this. So, So let's start with our coin toss.
All right. Fantastic. Are you ready? I will toss
ready.
The coin and call it.
Heads.
It's tails, so I'll kick off. Welcome to our first quarter. I'm going to kick off by defining our topic of the week, and then we'll cover some headlines from both homelessness and football. Homeless diversion, of course, is the topic of the week, so we're going to start by defining that for everyone. Homeless diversion is a strategy that assists people who are newly homeless, usually within 7 days of becoming homeless, to identify immediate, safe, and appropriate alternative housing arrangements rather than entering the homeless service system. This problem-solving approach involves connecting individuals and families to community resources, natural supports, or flexible financial assistance to resolve their housing crisis, ultimately reducing demand in the homeless system and saving resources for those who cannot be diverted. So, diversion, Danny, I know you've worked with diversion before. Tell us a little bit about your experience with diversion.
It's one of my favorite programs that we've done previously at the other places I've worked at, just because you're going to prevent shelter entry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It is cost effective, and it's quick solutions. So it's someone who's in crisis that we can address immediately and kind of place them somewhere, put them in housing, reconnect them with family or friends. So it's a great diversion is great, so you avoid them going into a shelter. I mean, and it works.
Yeah,
it does
absolutely.
work. It does work.
And I do want to distinguish it from prevention. A lot of people, confuse diversion and prevention. And the idea is prevention is before someone actually becomes homeless. So they're still housed or still have some kind of housing, even if it's in unstable housing or something like that. They still have housing. But diversion is after they've literally become homeless. But usually, like I said, it's within those first 7 days.
Right.
And so what we're trying to do is get people out of the system very, very quickly. And I've heard it called different things, some people call it rapid rehousing or rapid intervention or something like that. But diversion is usually, like I said, within those first 7 days. At least that's the way I've understood it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think, like you said, people do confuse it with prevention. Prevention is more of that one-time assistance with rental or utilities. Right. It's just, they just need that little extra boost.
Right, but to keep you in housing.
To keep you in housing,
That's
exactly.
what the prevention is
exactly.
about. Exactly.
Right. Yep.
As the term, states,
Prevention, yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
All right.
All right, so now we're going to do highlights of this week's football games. Oh, boy. And look ahead to our team's next opponents. So, Carl, our perfect season ended very quickly as it began.
For both of our teams,
yeah. So my team, we had a good game. We started off very strong, but unfortunately we lost to Philly 24-20. Some key drops that we had at fourth quarter just killed us, but we played a really good game against Philadelphia. So you want to talk about your team?
Yeah, it's still a little raw here. Monday night, Chicago lost to Minnesota at home, 27-24. Our defense looked good until they got tired. Our offense wasn't moving the ball, couldn't move the ball, and then eventually the defense just couldn't keep holding Minnesota over and over and over again. So we knew our defense was good. I had hoped it wouldn't take as long for the Ben Johnson era, our head coach, to kind of get the offense going, but it looks like it's going to take them a little while to kind of get that offense going.
Yeah,
So.
and usually with a new coach, it takes a bit to get kind of acclimated between players and so they'll get there.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope it's sooner rather than later.
I don't know what my excuse is for my team because our coach has been there, but
Well, you lost a star defensive player, that certainly didn't help.
Yeah, and he had a good game too. So
absolutely,
yes.
and unfortunately for us and for you, I guess we're both playing division opponents again next week.
Yes, we are.
Our schedule certainly doesn't get any easier. So talk about this week's opponent coming up for Dallas.
So we have the New York Giants, again, part of our division. So those games when they're two division games back to back, it's really important because if you lose two of those, it's really hard the rest of the year to kind of get back up there, especially towards the end of the year. But it's the Giants, so let's just leave it there and keep moving. So you have Detroit, correct?
Yeah, we have Detroit as our next opponent. Detroit looked terrible against Green Bay. I mean, as much as our offense looked bad with Ben Johnson coming over, their offense looked terrible without Ben Johnson. So I think it's going to take both of our teams a little time to adjust. I think our defense is a little better than Detroit's right now. But we'll see. It might end up in a 3-0 game or something. Who knows with both of our offenses struggling.
A win is a win.
We'll say a win would be a win, and I would
matter.
take a 3-0 win at this point.
Definitely, yeah.
You certainly don't want to start 0-2. So that wraps up the first quarter, and we'll be back after this break.
Hello, I'm Gigi Ramirez, the Senior Director of Fundraising and Engagement here at Pathlight Home. For over 30 years, we've helped more than 8,000 people transition from homelessness to hope. But when someone moves from the streets to their own home, they often have nothing. That's why we provide immediate essentials, everything from bedding and food to soap and cookware, to help them truly feel at home. Beyond housing, Pathlight offers career training and supportive services, like our 12-week culinary program, helping residents gain skills, find jobs, and rebuild independence. You can be part of the story. Volunteer your time, donate essential goods, or become a monthly Pathlight hero, ensuring every neighbor has a chance to thrive. Visit pathlighthome.org to donate today.
Welcome to the second quarter. We're getting a little deeper into a homelessness topic with something we call offense versus defense. We'll each take turns discussing some opposing viewpoints of a topic this week. So the topic this week, Danny, is should the government take the lead on ending homelessness in a community? Obviously, we've seen a little bit of this in the news, the federal government getting more involved in ending homelessness, or what they say is ending homelessness anyway, and also on the local level. So go ahead.
Yeah. So on the offense side, or the pros that we want to discuss is responsibility and accountability. That's number one. Homelessness is a public issue that affects health, safety, and economic development. Government exists to address systemic social problems. Housing, healthcare, and public safety all fall within its mandate. Number two, resources and scale. So federal, state, and local governments control our funding streams, HUD, COC, ESG, etc. Private charities and nonprofits cannot consistently match the scale and sustainability of government resources. Equity and rights. So housing is increasingly recognized as a human right, and government is responsible for ensuring those rights that they're protected. And without government leadership, solution risk become patchy, unequal, and dependent on the priorities of individual organizations. And then success models. Cities adopted housing first initiatives with strong government leadership, such as Salt Lake City, Houston, and they reduced chronic homelessness significantly. And then finally, government coordination enables integration with healthcare, employment, and criminal justice systems. So I think this is something that we've discussed all the time, me and you, especially what's going on out in the community, and it's affecting pretty much all of us. But I think that the government should have a part in making those laws, and so your cons.
Yeah, well, I have a different take on it, as you can imagine.
Of course.
I'll be playing the defense here, or the cons of the government
Yep.
taking lead on ending homelessness. So you brought up the idea that the federal government, covers different large-scale issues and things like that. But what I would argue is that the federal government in particular has, especially, I would say, more recently rather than in the past, although over history, I think people can agree that they don't have a very good track record of solving social issues. And homelessness is a social issue. It deals with human beings, and it deals with how to provide services to human beings. But if you look at examples, healthcare, our healthcare system is not the best it could be. Education, our education system is not as good as I think it could be. Even immigration, budgeting, and other social issues that get involved, or other larger issues that are out there. Those are all things that I think the federal government has, at least to some degree, failed. And so putting them in charge, at least at the federal level, and I agree a little bit about the local level, but I'll get into some of my other issues here too. But I think on the federal level, homelessness is too big and too unwieldy of a social issue for the federal government to actually take the lead. And again, this is taking the lead. I'm not saying they don't have a part in it, but taking the lead on it. My second point, experts in any field should take the lead in solving the issues. In this case, the local experts know their homeless issues better than most people in government. And so for the federal government or even the state government to mandate certain, things or rules or policies around social issues, that doesn't always go down to the local level. Each local level has experts at their level because like yourself and myself, I've been in this field for 31 years. And my level of experience working with homeless individuals will far exceed most of what the government employees are involved in. Number 3, elected officials and government staff have ulterior motives for solving or sometimes not solving social issues. Examples include using social problems against political opponents, scaring voters into voting for them to solve the problems, and overall just focusing on the outcome that will get them elected instead of what's best for their constituents. Let's face it, politicians nowadays, number one priority for most politicians nowadays, whether they say it or not, is to get reelected. And sometimes the social issues, especially around homelessness, sometimes those social issues are what they use as one of their points of why they should be elected or why they should be reelected in some cases. So I don't think homelessness or any social issue, honestly, is that kind of an issue where politicians should be using it to try to get elected or to try and scare you into who their opponents are or what their opponents think about homelessness. Fourth is elected officials are not in it for the long haul. Even if they're reelected or serve long terms, their attention to topics wane from day to day and week to week, depending on the news or the mood of the public or whatever. So from week to week, they'll have different priorities. And homelessness is a long-term solution. We're gonna talk about a quote that's later about commitment.
Right.
And one of the things that elected officials are notoriously not great at is sticking with long-term solutions for things, because they either realize that they won't be in office whenever the solution comes out, or again, they're trying to get reelected, and so they're looking at something, short-term, a Band-Aid approach. And homelessness with a Band-Aid approach obviously is not where we want to go. And then finally, government should fund, monitor, and assess nonprofits. And you talked about this a little bit, accountability. I agree with that. I think government should have some level of accountability or accountability for their funding and for what they're putting into the services. But they need to give the right support and resources to the nonprofits or to the people who are experts in the field around homelessness. So really, I think that's where it comes in. So I'll give you a chance to counter some of my points, and then I'll talk about some of yours.
No, I agree with some of those points. I think one of the things, what you said, I think every city and state is different.
Yeah.
Homelessness is different in every city and state.
Right.
Like you said, you've been in this for 30 years. I've been in it for 12. Homelessness is not the same of what it was 5, 10, 15 years ago. We see changes every year, especially during the pig count. We're finding different outcomes, and I think that the government has to also adjust to that.
That's right.
And if because again, every city and state, it's different. We can see elderly here, more elderly homelessness.
That's right.
Another state, you see young people. So it varies. But I think they should be involved. But to your point, they might not have to be as involved as I'm saying to be.
That's right. Well, and again, to talk about your points is, I think they definitely have the ability to bring things to scale, which is the important part that government should really play, is bringing solutions to scale. Let the local individuals, the local experts, be the experts on that social issue or whatever that issue is, but bring the resources. They have the resources to bring to scale. They just don't bring the resources. And again, I mentioned some of the reasons why they don't: elections, political parties, whatever their differences are, things like that. But they don't bring those things to scale. But I think in your case, one of the pros really is the scale that they could bring to bear on homelessness. They really could bring a lot of resources and a lot of scale to it. Unfortunately, we haven't really seen that. And again, that goes back to some of the cons that I have, is that they notoriously have not been bringing things to scale for any kind of social issue really in our country. Or I don't want to say any kind, because they have to some degree brought some things to scale. But for most social issues, they've left us far behind as far as the resources that are needed for each area. We've made it to the halfway point, and during halftime, we want to take a moment for fan interaction and highlight an inspired quote related to our work.
All right, so now we're going to take talk about some fan interaction and some questions that came in through our questions at pathlighthome.org. So one question that came in from Esmeralda was, what's one myth you constantly had to debunk when talking about homelessness? I think for me, when I'm out talking to people and having conversations, it's, they fell into this because they just wanted to fall into this. It's not, they wanted to be homeless. And I think it drives me a little bit crazy because nobody wants to be homeless. It's just situations. And I think that's one of the things that I constantly have to kind of educate people on and explain, the side of mental illness and substance abuse. And, everybody has a different story of why they became homeless, but no one's asking for it. It's not that they're looking to live on the street. It's not that they're, they want to live in a tent. So that's one of the ones that I think is constantly out there. And I think it's just educating folks of what it is that happens.
Yeah, you think about it when you're growing up. You don't say, I want to be homeless and sleeping on the streets. That's not something that you typically think about. We all have dreams. We all have aspirations. And the reality is that most of the people that are currently homeless or have experienced homelessness were housed before that.
Correct.
And so they know what it's like to be housed. And what we found when we were doing outreach, when I did outreach back many, many moons ago, back in the 1990s. You remember those, right, Danny?
It's slightly.
1990s. Is what we found is that what people were really saying to us when they said they wanted to be homeless was they were saying, I don't believe that you can get me out of this situation.
Right.
And because they had tried before, like 99.9% of the people that we ran into as street outreach workers had already tried to get out of homelessness. And so really what they were saying is, we don't want to go through the effort and the time and the energy and put everything into it, get our hopes up, and then get dashed again because you can't help us.
Right.
That's really what they were saying to us when they were saying, no, we don't want your help, whatever, is you can't really help us.
Yeah, and I think to your point, just like our Nobody Left Behind program,
that's right,
with the gentleman we met, and we were doing outreach, and we told him we were going to help him. He didn't believe us.
That's exactly right.
He didn't believe us because I think he's been offered this before, and but we came through and we housed him, and it was fantastic. And now he has that trust back in the system, in us, and what we do. So yeah, that's definitely.
And we talked in the earlier segment about professionals being involved, and that's why you always want to try to have professionals involved. So even if someone says to you on the streets, "No, I really want to be out here," we want you to reach out to us. We want the professionals, the nonprofits who are doing this work, want you to tell us about these people so we can send professionals there who can work with people and talk to them and convince them and overcome that feeling of hopelessness that they have.
And it's building that trust with them. It's making sure that they trust you enough to let you help them.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So the second question we have from Esmeralda is, if you had the power to change one policy tomorrow, what would it be and why?
Ooh.
So I'm going to hand that over to Carl.
We're not on video, Danny, but I got my hand.
Yeah, I'm going to hand that over to you. I think you have a good answer for this.
Yeah, the policy that we could change. And this is something that I've gotten on a soapbox before, and it's a simple policy, and I hope everybody's sitting down because this could, in fact, end homelessness in the entire United States. And it's a policy change that would not involve increasing any resources or funding. And basically, it's the policy of the housing authorities giving priority to homeless individuals. Right now, housing authorities have the capacity, at least with their total inventory. I'm not saying that they have vacancies or occupancies. What I'm saying is with their total inventory, they have the inventory to be able to house all of the homeless people that are unsheltered or sheltered in the United States right now. But the problem is that the way their system has been set up, and sometimes the way their policies are set up, homeless people or people experiencing homelessness don't get the opportunity to get into those resources, the public housing units, the vouchers that they have, any of those types of things. If they change their policy, if the federal government, and this is where coming to scale and bring resources, if they change their policy to make it a requirement that housing authorities had to house homeless individuals first and could not house other people with their resources until all the homeless people in their area were actually housed, it could end homelessness for us. It literally could end homelessness across the entire United States. And it's a policy change.
Right.
The only reason that they don't do it is because each local jurisdiction, each housing authority has control over its own policies. And so they determine whether they want to give priority or who they want to put into their housing units. But the federal government could make that change and make it a requirement that they don't serve anyone except people who are homeless before they serve people who are already housed. And about when I did some research on this a year or 2 years ago, and what I found is at least 90% of the people that were in housing authority units were housed before they moved into those units. Now, I'm not saying they were stably housed, and I'm not saying they weren't paying more than they should have paid for income.
Right.
But I don't see why they should get priority. Anyone who's housed should get priority over anyone who's homeless. That doesn't make any sense to me.
True.
And we have systems with our continuums of care where we could make referrals for all of the people that are homeless to the housing authorities and get them in.
So do you think that I've never thought of that ever. So do you think that addressing that policy, that changing the policy to that, do you think that then the people that are housed that you said might be struggling, do you think they're going to they'll end up homeless as well? Is that another?
Well, it's ironic because that's what you might think. Is you might think, well, then those people would become homeless because they didn't get the voucher. What research shows us though is that most of those people don't become homeless.
Okay,
they figure out a way. And here's a telling tale. You know as well as I do that sometimes it takes years. Once you've gotten approved for a voucher, let's say you have a Section 8 voucher, which is a subsidy that you get to help pay rent at a unit or something like that. Sometimes people are on a waiting list for 2 years or 3 years for the Section 8 voucher. During that entire time, they're housed.
They're housed, yep.
And so just by the fact that they're moving into the housing authority unit, sure, it helps them with the rent, and I'm not saying that that's not a case, but I'm just saying who should get priority first. And if we did that, if we made that one policy change at the federal level, mandating that all housing authorities could only house homeless individuals before they housed anyone who was, or before they, housed anyone who was already in housing, it could change the entire landscape of homelessness. So
That's pretty good.
Yeah. And again, no more funding. We're talking about the same vouchers they already have. We're talking about the same monies. We're talking about the same thing. So, yeah.
Well, we want to thank Esmeralda for her questions. And again, if you have any questions or comments, please email us at questions@pathlighthome.org.
Absolutely. And now we'll go to the homelessness quote of the week. This is a good one. This quote of the week is about commitment.
Yeah, that you made me read it twice because I was
know,
like, wait a minute.
I had to listen to it twice when I heard it. This comes from a good friend of mine, Ian DeJong, who is the executive director of Org Code, which is a nonprofit organization, or actually it's not a nonprofit organization, but it's an organization that helps homeless individuals. And Ian said, I heard him say this one time, and I thought it was an interesting quote. He said, commitment is the difference between bacon and eggs. He said, for the pig, it's a lifetime commitment. For the chicken, it's a day's work. And when you think about it, when you think about commitment and you think about what we do trying to end homelessness, it's about that commitment. And we certainly have some people here who have committed their lives to ending homelessness. But we also have some people who, stay for a little while, realize it's not for them, and then they go on their way. Look, we want as many resources and many people helping us as we possibly can get. There's no doubt about that. Definitely. We need everybody involved. We need the community involved. We need everybody to do as much as they can. So whether it's a day's work, volunteering, donating, any of those kinds of things, that's perfectly fine with us. Or whether it's a long-term commitment and a long time or a lifetime commitment, we love those. We love those individuals as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think any little bit helps, whether it's small like a donation or volunteering, and again with staff, we have some great staff that have been doing this for many, many years, and this is what they do. Like me and you, right? This is what we do. This is what we love doing. So I love that quote. I read it a couple of times and I was like, oh, okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, so very good.
And that concludes our halftime. So let's jump right into the third quarter. We're ready to highlight the goodwill and good works in the NFL community, look at how our local football teams fared, and announce our NFL home team locks of the week. Danny, to you for the spotlight.
So the spotlight is this week. We recognize the Kansas City Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes and his 15 and the Mahomies Foundation. I like that name, the Mahomies. In April of this year, they launched a new Fresh Start Fund for kids experiencing homelessness. We've seen an increase in youth homelessness here in Orlando. Their initial $15,000 donation will help 50 kids experiencing homelessness get new wardrobes. They are partnering with the Halo Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to helping thousands of children who are homeless and at risk around the world. We are so grateful for the 15 and the Mahomies Foundation for giving our kids a fresh start when they move into a Halo home, said Halo founder and CEO Rebecca Welsh. This fund allows our staff to provide important move-in items and take youth shopping for new underwear, socks, shoes, and clothing to get them the things that they want and so desperately need. Imagine being a teen with only a garbage bag of everything you own. Every child deserves to be confident. Every child deserves dignity. The Fresh Start Fund gives these kids precisely that. It's
I think
great.
That's a great story.
It's great,
and it also highlights something, Danny, that you and I have talked about. We have a flex fund here at Pathlight Home.
Correct.
And it's for those little things. People think when you move into housing, we just need to pay the rent. But you need furniture, you need clothing, you need hygiene items, you need towels, which is why also in-kind donations are so important to us and getting those donations regularly. Yeah. Because a home isn't a home if all it is four walls and you're sitting there and looking at everything. You have to have clothing, you have to have bedding, you have to have items that make a home an actual home.
Yeah, we want to make sure that they move in and they know that it's theirs.
Absolutely.
And they're comfortable coming in and seeing frames on the walls and their own kitchenware. But this is a great foundation.
And another thing I just wanted to point out about that spotlight is he donated $15,000. And it might not seem like a lot of money, but that $15,000 can start a trend. It can start a fund. It can start something going, and a little amounts add up. And that's one of the things I think that's really important about this also.
Yeah.
But thank you, Danny.
Yeah.
Let's go to the fantasy football section of
this
our
is all
podcast.
you, Carl.
I know,
all you,
know, all me,
all you.
Unfortunately, I didn't do very well on my fantasy football player pick of the week. I picked Joe Flacco. Joe had a good game. I'm not going to say he didn't have a good game, but he didn't have the stellar game that I thought he would have against Cincinnati. Turns out Cincinnati's defense is a little better than I thought they were. So Joe kind of, did kind of his average Joe kind of thing, right?
There you go.
Right in the middle.
His average Joe.
Exactly. This week, I'm picking for my fantasy football player pick of the week. I'm picking Chuba Hubbard. He's the running back for the Carolina Panthers. He didn't have a great day against Jacksonville this last week, but I'm looking for him to have kind of a breakout. They're playing Arizona this week. He's expected to get 14 points. I think he'll overproduce in those 14 points. So if you got Chuba Hubbard sitting on your bench or, trying to pick between him and somebody else, I say go with Chuba this week.
Very good.
Our fantasy flashback this week goes back just 1 year to week 2 in 2024. And our fantasy flashback player is Alvin Kamara. He's a running back for New Orleans. In week 2, he had 180 scrimmage yards and 4 touchdowns versus your Dallas Cowboys, Danny.
Thank you for that.
I know.
Thank you for bringing that up. Just dig in.
Not a stellar week for the Cowboys, but it was a stellar week for Alvin Kamara last year, only 1 year ago. Again, scoring 4 touchdowns and 180 scrimmage yards. So he had a fantastic week.
Pretty
if
good.
you had Alvin last year, you probably won your week in week 2. Now we'll go on to our local teams that we want to talk about. I'll start with Jones High School. Unfortunately, Jones suffered a setback this week. They played Evans, and they lost 28-25 at home. They were on top of the rankings. I don't know where they rank now, but I'm sure it probably will not be number 1. They're still 2-1. I think they're still a strong team. Next week, they'll be playing Edgewater.
Okay. So my dad's team lost, but Boone High School are 3-0. So they beat Olympia last week, 42-6.
Wow!
So it was very close. They had 188 of passing yards, 80 yards rushing. They moved up in the ranks, 14 points to number 94. And are number 20 now in Orlando. They were 24 before. So they're doing great. So their next game is on the 12th. Okay. They are playing West Orange, who is also undefeated.
Ooh,
so that's going to be a good game. So,
there you go. Exactly. All right. Now we go to the locks of the week, where Danny and I each pick a home team lock of the week. We actually did really well last week.
Yes.
And we again, for entertainment purposes only.
Yes.
If you followed mine and Danny's advice, I won with Denver over Tennessee, and Danny won with Washington.
21-6.
That's
beat
right.
The Giants.
He beat the Giants.
Yes.
Exactly. So that was fantastic.
Yes.
And who do you got this week for your pick?
So I am going to go with the Giants versus Cowboys because we are the home team.
Wow.
So I'm picking my Cowboys. I just am. We last week was, it was okay, but this week we're going to do really good. So I'm picking the Cowboys this week.
Wow, fantastic.
It's at home. It's at home, so.
And my pick this week is going to be the Kansas City Chiefs at home versus the Philadelphia Eagles. I think Kansas City is going to bounce back. I think they had a tough game against the Chargers. Philadelphia obviously coming off a high over your Cowboys. Okay. Big win for them. So I think Kansas City at home is going to get it done this week.
I originally had them.
Okay.
I put them first, but then I saw Cowboys. I was like, I got to go my Cowboys route.
All right.
So,
fair enough. Fair enough.
That's going to be a good game, though, Kansas City and Chiefs.
I think it should be a really good game, and I think Philly, I think Kansas City will get it done at home. So those are our picks of the week. Stay tuned for our final quarter after this message. Hello, everyone. I'm Carl Falconer, the president and CEO of Pathlight Home, and I'm often asked by many in the community, what can I do to help end homelessness? I would like to invite you to join Pathlight Home's efforts. Pathlight Home is a 501c3 nonprofit organization in Central Florida. We currently have 560 units of housing that we provide to individuals experiencing homelessness. But we also provide additional support through employment resource centers and mental health services. We have a drop-in day center where people can come in from the heat, do laundry, get meals, all in preparation to get them into housing eventually and off the streets. Community involvement is key to the success of our efforts, and we love when community members want to get involved with Pathlight Home. There are 3 things we invite you to do to help. Number 1, consider supporting us with funding. No donation is too small, and every dollar has an impact on our community. You can go to pathlighthome.org and click our donate button to contribute anytime. Number 2 is volunteering. We love to have volunteers come in and help us with any of our projects. We have ongoing projects and needs, but are also open to individuals and groups sharing specific talents in ways that build up our residents. Number 3 is take a tour with us. Come here to our facility and see what we do for yourself. It's the best way to get an inside look at what we're doing at Pathlight Home each day. We think it's important to understand the work it takes to fight homelessness and love the opportunity to meet community members who are passionate about the issue. We love our Central Florida community and are grateful every day for the continued support. And again, to get involved, go to pathlighthome.org. Thank you.
Welcome to the fourth quarter, where we will wind down this episode by reflecting on a homelessness MVP and a fumble of the week before wrapping up with our key takeaway. So, Carl, MVP of the week.
Thank you, Danny. Our homelessness MVP of the week comes from my old stomping grounds in South Florida, actually Hollywood, Florida, and it is the Hollywood Community Court. It's hosted by the Caring Place, another nonprofit in the area. And what they say is justice here looks different. Instead of focusing only on punishment, this court addresses low-level misdemeanor crimes and municipal ordinance violations such as trespassing, unlawful lodging, petty theft, and park after-hours citations by offering innovative alternatives such as community service, mental health counseling, or substance abuse treatment. So basically, instead of going to jail or paying a fine, you basically agree to get into one of the other social service programs that might help you out of homelessness, and then you get that charge waived. Judge Corey A. Cawthon presides over the court, and by addressing the root issues of homelessness, the court creates opportunities for long-term stability and success. So let me give you a couple of the statistics from the court. They serve 572 individuals. They welcomed 70 NTA clients referred to court. What's NTA stand for? NTA stands for Notice to Appear.
Yes.
It stands for Notice to Appear. They held 1,010 court hearings. They celebrated 17 graduates who completed all of their community service, secured housing, increased their income, and built stability. So they did everything, these 17. I'm sure there are many, many more that are still working through that system.
Correct.
It obviously takes a while to get back on your feet. And there were 1,114 services that were provided by Broward County partners. They say this work is only possible thanks to a strong network of community providers, including the City of Hollywood, Hollywood Police Department, Broward Sheriff's Office, Memorial Healthcare System, Henderson Behavioral Health, Task Force for Ending Homelessness, where I used to work, and many others. The Hollywood Community Court is proud to work in partnership with over 60 service providers within the local community. Community courts exemplify how compassion, innovation, and collaboration can transform lives, offering not only justice, but also support and opportunity to Broward County residents, in this case, in need. The 17th Judicial Circuit also has community courts in Fort Lauderdale and Pompano Beach, as well as Hollywood. So that's our
fantastic.
MVP, and that's great. Yeah. And I know we have some community courts here in Central Florida as well, and I think, again, they're a great alternative. Look, let's face it, homeless people who are not making a lot of money, sometimes employed, not making a lot of money, they're not going to be able to pay big fines. They don't have the time and the resources, often even the transportation to get to and from court hearings and things like that. And jails are already filled enough with low-level misdemeanor offendants who are going to stay there a day or two and then get out. There's no reason to do this. This is a great alternative to be able to, we talked about diversion,
right?
To be able to divert people or move people towards a longer-term solution rather than keep them in a static or keep them in just a circle.
When I think this shows partnership, it shows, that 1,114 people through partners.
That's right.
Which what we discussed earlier is we all have to work together as a community. Shows the results on this and how positive it is when everybody comes together and works to address the issue that's in front of them.
Absolutely. So, and you see, again, to your point that we made earlier,
correct.
The local jurisdiction, the city of Hollywood, is involved in this, but there are also so many more partners here.
Correct.
And they're acting, I think, more as a convener than they are an actual service provider.
Right.
Because the city, I don't think, is providing the services.
Right.
They're relying on the experts in the area to provide the services.
Yeah, that's great.
And now let's go to the homeless fumble of the week. This one is, again, from week to week. We highlight something that didn't go as well or might not have been as positive. We're calling the homeless fumble of the week for the HUD, that's Housing and Urban Development, federal government, releasing their Continuum of Care Builds NOFO application. And it's not the application itself. It's the way the application's been released, and it's the way the application is being handled. And so I want to give a little bit of background so people understand why this is a fumble. From year to year, HUD, again, Housing and Urban Development Department, puts out a notice of funding opportunity. So they put out this big application to local communities to be able to apply for federal funding. And rather than go into too many details, this specific notice of funding opportunity is to actual build housing, which is great. That's fantastic. It's the first time that they've done one of these kinds of applications in quite a while.
Yep.
But the problem is the way that it's being executed. That's where the fumble comes in. Last fall, in October, they actually put out this application. And people submitted, and people were scored, and people were ranked, and the only thing that didn't happen was the funding didn't get pushed out.
Right.
So what they did is the federal government pulled the funding back, reissued the application later, and then upon reissuing the application, changed all of the requirements for it, or a lot of the requirements for it.
Right.
So normally when HUD releases a notice of funding opportunity or an application, they have a scoring process, and the people who score the highest, which makes sense, should, in fact, get the funding
right.
that they need. And it's a competition. It's a true competition. Right. Well, they're doing a little bit different this time, Danny.
Just a little.
The first fumble comes from the fact that they're giving 1 week to complete this application. And for anyone who's ever done this kind of an application, or any kind of application, honestly, to any government agency, 1 week is absolutely not enough time to get these things done. The second thing is there is no scoring criteria. So what they're doing is they're asking a series of questions, and if you can answer yes to all of those questions, then you're eligible for the funding. No scoring.
Oh.
No scoring. And it might be the easiest application ever
right.
that you turn it in.
Yeah.
Now, here's where it gets a little bit even wonkier, is they are literally going to decide who gets the funding based on who turns in their application first. If you've answered yes to all of the questions and you turn your application in first, then you get the funding over people who turned it in afterwards. It doesn't matter what your project looks like, as long as you can answer yes to these questions.
No score.
Nothing. No nothing. You basically just have to say, yes, I'll do all these things, and then turn it in before everybody else.
Yeah. So
which is just absolutely absurd.
Yeah.
And, we talked before about, should the government take lead
right.
on these things. And honestly, with all of the talk that people have about accountability and, making sure that we're getting our resources in the right place and all of these things, I don't see how this fits any of those criteria.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we don't know what kind of applications are going to go in. We don't know how they're going to be put together in a week. And again, it just leaves it up in the air, and it makes it sound like they're just trying to get this money out the door, and they don't care who gets it, honestly.
Yeah, and we've done these before, and we know that it takes more than a week to submit a good application that is going to give you great scores.
Absolutely.
For you to get this funding. And so when we spoke, me and you, yesterday a little bit about it, and kind of told me how all this now is looking, it's just I don't understand it. I don't get it.
Yeah.
You know, you submit first, you get it. I mean, it's
it doesn't even make sense to me. And again, accountability and validity, and really trying to get the best products out there and use the money the most wisely. That doesn't make sense to me with how they're doing it here. So anyway, that's our fumble of the week. Our key takeaway this week, Danny?
Our key takeaway this week is that our team lost. That's the main thing. But no, I think that the policy that you spoke about earlier was just fantastic. I never heard of it. It just you had my brain going, thinking how that'll work. We got some questions in, which was fantastic.
Right.
So please keep them coming. Questions at pathlighthome.org. I think we're getting our stride in our podcast. This is good.
I think we're getting better at it.
Yeah, this is good.
If there was one key takeaway that I would say for this week, I'd say it's about that collaboration. Because, again, we've talked about who should take the lead and who should be involved and things like this. But honestly, it needs everybody. I mean, we need everybody to be involved in this process and everybody to be involved in ending homelessness. It's going to take the entire village, as they say, to really make this work. And so whether it's federal government, whether it's community support, whether it's local nonprofits, all of us, faith-based organizations, all of us really need to be involved in this. So I think that's it.
Yeah, and just the community coming in and you know, giving their time and learning about what we do. What about homelessness? Like we talk about myths, you know, learning a little bit more about the population that we serve and how they can give more to not just us, but all the other nonprofits in our area. So
thank you for tuning in with us. We had some pleasure this week, and we want to thank all of you for listening. And again, if you have questions or comments about the podcast, please send it to questions@pathlighthome.org, and we'll be happy to answer your questions or read some of your comments on the air. Thank you.
I'm still dreaming that we will become able and sufficient to increase the housing of homeless. This is merely a beginning.